So we now have the pleasure to welcome our next speaker, which is Susanne Emonet. So Susanne is Vice President for Product and Strategy at Kudelski IoT. With a business background, she worked in highly technical environments for most of her career, covering different industries from automotive via medical, cross-vertical IoT security. After several years in Bosch, where she had held various functions from marketing to director of corporate strategy, she has joined a medtech startup before starting at Kudelski years ago. So today, Susanne is going to provide an introduction to IoT because it's her big thing, as you may have understood, and explain you the potential risks associated with those connected objects. So Susanne, the floor is yours.
Okay, perfect. Then I will share a few slides with you, and I assume you can see me now. So it's a huge pleasure for me to speak with you about the reasons why I love working in cyber environment and why I think you should care about this topic just as much as I do. My name is Susanne Emonet. I'm Vice President for Product Strategy at Kudelski IoT. And I'm fortunate to really spend all my working day with something that I believe is truly, absolutely relevant. Now, when I say this is truly relevant, I mean it's relevant for everyone. However, if I speak to my non-cyber security friends, they typically think that I'm doing some abstract, strange, incomprehensible specialty field that they really shouldn't care and don't care about at all. And that's a huge problem for me. It is relevant for everyone, not just for the tech enthusiast. It's relevant for any normal consumer. It is relevant for a purchasing responsible in a large corporation. It is relevant for the doctor. It is relevant for the patient. It's relevant for everyone who drives a car. It's relevant for literally anyone who would possibly use or work with a connected device. Now, here at Kudelski, we are really specialized in digital security. So we have my home division, which is the Internet of Things. We look after everything that is connected. But we also have a division that's specialized for IT cybersecurity. We have a division for content security and one for access security. So it's really kind of the DNA of our organization. And in this organization, we have an approach where we go really hand in hand in a partnership type of approach with our customers into market. And that's important for us because we really need to understand what our customers actually need. Often organizations don't know what is needed in terms of IoT security. And we really want to make sure that this is understood, that we don't over-secure or under-secure something that's relevant. Now, to do so, we have decided a couple of years ago to open our laboratory. It's a hacking laboratory for hardware hacking and software hacking, pen testing, anything you can imagine, to our customers. It was formerly a secret lab. We used that internally only. And now it's actually used to create transparency on what different weaknesses could specific devices or entire systems have in terms of IoT. And I will speak to you a little bit today about what we do in this hacking lab. I will provide you a few examples to hopefully open your heart and your mind for IoT security as much as mine is open. And I hope that I can really make your heart beat for the topic. Now, in general, clearly, we know a lot about IoT security per se already, right? This is not a new topic for everyone who works in cybersecurity. If you come from IT, you understand that whatever needs to be connected should be secured. However, most organizations have a clear separation between the IT environment and the production environment for specific items for devices. And this is a huge problem. This leads to some real bad breaches, and it's something that clearly needs to be addressed. So if we want to address this, we would actually need something like a CISO type of organization where somebody has clear responsibilities. And in order to make this happen, there's a couple of drivers that we can look at. I mean, there is clearly regulation. In short, organizations would be forced to do something about IoT security. There can be safety impacts. So if it's a risk to your health or to your life even, there can be reputational impacts. There can be financial impacts. If your production site is down for a certain amount of time, for example, there can be many other drivers. But the first and the most important one is really awareness. And awareness does not just start in some C-level suite. Awareness starts with everyone. So this is why I invite you into my little world of IoT security, into a few stories. So I lean back here in my comfortable rocking chair, and I will share a few stories with you just to take you into the world that I really deal with on a day-to-day basis. My first story is one that I think some of you, those familiar with cybersecurity, probably know. It's the story of a casino, a well-doing casino that apparently was financially well enough off to invest into a very fancy fish tank. A fish tank, something like you see here on the screen at the moment. So it's a thing where fish is swimming in, and it's connected because it's a real cool one. So this connected fish tank can actually tell you if the water temperature is too high or too low, and it can even automate the feeding. That's fabulously practical. I'm not much of a fish person, so I would see why whoever installs a fish tank doesn't want to spend much time and much effort on it. You get an alert if something is wrong, and then you fix it, and that's it. Fabulous. And frankly speaking, I think I wouldn't think of a single person outside my cybersecurity environment who would consider IoT security for a fish tank. Now, unfortunately, that turned out to be a little problem because hackers have accessed this fish tank, and through this fish tank, they have actually received access to about 10 gigabyte of data of this specific casino. So we're speaking data about customers, financial data, business data, all sorts of data that typically you wouldn't want to be breached, all through the little entry port of a fish tank. And I think that's fabulous, but we don't have to go as far as to sunny Las Vegas to know about difficult IoT topics, because we have them here. And I mean, really, right here. We have those little smartwatches, many of us do. And many of us, especially the more sporty ones, they use an app that's called Strava. Strava is fantastic. You can collect all sorts of training data. You can share with your friends. You can work on your personal training profile. You can do lots of things with it. And Strava, in order to help you improve, they collect a lot of data points, really a lot. And that's fabulous. And in 2017, they thought, hey, you know what? We have more than 3 trillion data points, GPS data points, that we could just put into a beautiful map to show the world that all those sporty people are not alone. We are in this together. We are all sporty people throughout the world. A little beautiful map, just a visual map, nothing critical, except for if there is a lot of sporty activity, a lot of running at 6 a.m. going on somewhere in the desert, it's unlikely that it's a group of Bedouins who have just acquired smartwatches and work with Strava. It turned out to be secret military bases that were found with this little fitness tracking app. So not everybody has a Strava application. Not everybody wears a smartwatch. Not everybody has a garage door opener either. I do by now, a non-connected one, which I have chosen because I had a little trust problem with the connected ones after here in our fabulous little hacking lab. Some of my hacking friends have asked me if I wanted to do a little hack myself. So I'm a business person, right? I walked into the room and I thought they will show me something and maybe I will learn something, and I did. I learned that this fully certified and available in the market connected garage door opener, which you can purchase here in Switzerland, is a fabulously practical, yet again, right? It's a connected garage door opener with a little camera. And it's connected to your Wi-Fi so that you can put in your personal number plate, and the garage door opener is going to recognize your car, open for you, and everybody will be happy. Except for if this thing is hacked, then people can actually not only change the number plates that are registered for your garage door opener, they can also make a few little changes on the firmware and access your router and read out all and any communication that you have on your personal network, including any sort of personal communication. It can also include any sort of passwords that you have stored there. So a little less fun, to say the least. More fun again, and here, I mean, this is beyond what I consider just practical. is wearable medical devices. Wearable medical devices can be all sorts of little sensors or little machines that help you provide an overview of any sort of medical data. It can be a blood pressure thing, it can be some sort of a laboratory on the skin, it can be really a thermometer, anything you can think of. Now, we know that a lot of medical devices are connected now. That's fabulously practical, especially if you think about chronically ill patients. They typically have to go to the doctor very frequently, depending on what condition you have. You go 2 or 3 times per week to have your blood pressure taken. And to stay with just this blood pressure example, it's clearly much more convenient. If you can do that at home, in your rocking chair, like I would like to be in here now, and just have the data sent automatically to the right backend. Make sure your doctor would get an alert if your blood pressure is not okay. And then in case there is a problem, he can reach out to you and make a personal meeting. In case there is no problem, you don't have to bother. So it's fantastic, except for that, again, my friends here in our little hacking lab, they took this thing apart, and within a few hours, they were able to send the wrong data to the back end. So send alerts to a doctor when there was no need for an alert. And worst case, if I want to really, really inherit that beautiful house of my aunt, and I just send wrong data to her doctor, then I have the risk that actually the doctor is going to change her medication and may get this heritage to me much sooner than it should have come. So there's real actual risk. On top of just sending the wrong data, by the way, our hackers have also been able, within, and we're still speaking, few hours, maybe a day or two of effort, they have also been able to send the right data to the wrong backend and access the data pool in the backend to have access to personal data, medical data of I don't know how many patients. So this, you can imagine, is already something that really, really, really shouldn't happen. And the last one, my last little example here is one that I'm sharing with you because it is super impactful and it gives us a little bit of an idea of how many people and how broad these different problems in hacks can actually go. Here we're speaking about a security camera system. It was a hack just, I think, 2 or 3 months ago. The camera system of Verkada has been hacked. Now, Verkada cameras, about 150,000 of them that have actually been hacked, have been deployed in police departments or prisons, also in schools, in hospitals, in psychiatric hospitals, also in manufacturing sites of Tesla, for example. So as security cameras really in normal business environment as well. This is bad, and this is clearly bad enough already. Much, much worse though, if you're aware that Verkada is actually specialized in face recognition. So we're speaking about hackers having access to 150,000 data points in all sorts of very sensible environment, such as, again, psychiatric hospitals, prisons, with actual face recognition mechanisms behind it. And I think that's just insane. And this is something that clearly shows us IoT security is not just relevant for me if I want to put this connected garage door opener or if I want to wear a smartwatch. It is relevant for me wherever I go as soon as there's any sort of connected device in my area. No need to say that obviously there's cameras in trains. No need to say that obviously vehicles, modern cars are connected nowadays. So really for everyone, for every person who lives in a civilization like ours, connected devices are something that is just around us and part of our life. To the positive as to the negative, as long as it's not really secured and properly protected. Now, what does this mean for us in terms of conclusion? The first thing that I really hope you will all take away is as soon as something is connected, any device, it is exposed. It is the same story as with IT or with your smartphone, it needs protection. IoT really needs to be secured like IT, with password mechanisms, with all sorts of little hurdles, with encryptions, with root of trust. So there's really a whole story that needs to be taken into consideration. As a consumer, I need to buy smart. I really have to make sure that I'm aware of what I put in my house, what I put on my arm, what I put in my car. And I know this is often extremely difficult. So there's a few initiatives, and I'm quite happy to mention just one. It's called the Trustworthy IoT Coalition. It's one of the initiatives that we are working on in the frame of the World Economic Forum. It is intended to really create some sort of a transparency with a label that enables normal consumers to make smart buying decisions in terms of IoT. And last but not least, as a company, and I mean as any company, we need to consider IoT security in our strategy. We need to consider it in our organization with clear responsibilities and processes, and we need to allocate respective budget. And if possible, before we have this huge ransomware attack or before we have some other sort of massive breach. I hope these few insights have given you a little bit of a view of what IoT security really is about. It is not just about cryptography and deep tech. It's really about caring how we can make sure that this real world that we are living in at the moment can be protected and can still make sure that we can live with privacy in a privacy preserving environment that we can trust in, that we can trust the people we interact with. And I very much hope that these insights have opened your hearts and your brains a little bit for the topic of IoT security. Now, I will not be able to be in the Q&A session later on, but I'm very, very happy to take any of your questions and comments in the next 13 minutes now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Susanne. Really, really interesting presentation. We have a first question. Great. So the question is, you mentioned you don't have a smart garage door on purpose. Do you think we should avoid such devices or try to make them more secure? How can we address this dichotomy? The question from Natalie Gratzer.
I think avoiding is impossible in many cases, right? You have exposure to topics where you can't choose. If you're in a train station, there's a security camera. If it's being hacked, you will not do anything about it. I think we should be mindful in terms of what we put in our house. It is relatively likely that houses with a home security system that's not secured. So if you buy the cheapest possible international brand security camera, it is likely accessible. And we know this sort of thing. I would not go against connected devices, but I'd use them mindfully. It's topics like you wouldn't want your cell phone on your night desk at night. The question is if your TV in your living room really needs that camera, and if not, make sure you don't have it.
Okay. So in addition, do you think this is the responsibility of the manufacturer or our own responsibilities of product owner to secure them?
I think the responsibility needs to be somewhere between regulation and the actual manufacturers. The manufacturers are the ones who need to make it happen, but I can tell you very clearly that the majority of device manufacturers at the moment don't have the skills to do so. And it is extremely difficult to understand which components you actually use. When I mentioned our in-house hacking lab here, the reason why we have actually created it is because we have used components in the past on chipset level, so really silicon topics that were on marketing level communicated as super, super secure. In reality, we have seen that they have been breachable, and we wanted to understand how this is possible. So we started looking into those devices, really into the components in a very deep level. And now we have millions of equipment to really see how you can take silicon apart. For a normal organization, for a manufacturer of devices, this is clearly not possible. So he will need to have the awareness, he will need to work with partners who can make it happen, and he needs to be incentivized to make it happen.
Okay, thank you. So now next question from Alexandra Sidler, and I think it goes also with this one. So if the manufacturing part does not do its job, what can you advise us to do to protect ourselves for whether it's garage door opener or those smartwatches that we're all wearing?
I think at the current state where we are, the only thing is to use technology where it's smart, where we really have an advantage of it. If you don't need your smartwatch at night, take it off. any sort of data that you share that is not useful for you, just don't do it. It's not added value. The second topic is there's a lot of different initiatives, and some of my colleagues here, for example, are working on what we call Nagra Scout. It's a little device that you will be able to connect in your home that monitors data flow. And if, for example, all of a sudden your Alexa speaker starts to send tons of data packets to a server somewhere in a different country, it is very likely that this is not intended to be, and then it will provide an alert. So there's a lot of initiatives at the moment where we are really trying to simplify the consumer life and enable him to use technology much more smartly. But this will take time. It's the same as with IT. We all were connected with our computers, happily using the internet, and then just learning step by step that a password would be handy, that a firewall would be handy, that there's a few things we need to take care of.
Okay. So in the end, except from like try to avoid such things that are not as important, yeah, nothing really. But it's nice to know that there is those really nice initiatives that are ongoing that will help people in the future to protect themselves while using disconnected devices. I think it's a really good news.
And watch out for companies who take it serious already. There's a few companies here in the region who try to clearly differentiate based on how we can use things. And by the way, in terms of differentiation, it's also worth mentioning when we make a device today, it's typically protected against the attacks we have today. If we look at a car, for example, with a expected lifetime of 10 years or more, then we already know that whatever protection mechanism we put in today is going to be hackable tomorrow. So these security mechanisms don't only have an impact in terms of can I be hacked or not, it also has a massive impact on the life cycle of the entire product. If we need to replace every product that is not properly secured today, it's just massive amounts of waste. And we have to be careful about this. We cannot just throw everything away. We need to create products in a sustainable way. And security is, of course, part of that.
Okay. So maybe would you buy a Tesla today or not sure?
My colleagues here do Tesla hacks as a little fun thing from time to time. My strategy on this is I try to be friends with the hackers whenever possible. I bring them beer sometimes to make sure that they won't do any harm to me. I don't own a Tesla, but in any other car is hackable as well by now. So it's not just the Tesla.
Okay. So maybe we have another question coming from Ina, which is about this the story about the military base which have been discovered by Strava. Do you know what happened after this military base was discovered? Like, did Strava change something in their setup or anything else that may happen?
As far as I know, there is no further visual documents on secret military bases. I don't know what has led to this. I don't know if they systematically don't use Strava anymore, or if those data points have been taken out in the aftermath. But I mean, it's a fabulous example. It wasn't even a hack. It just showed how connected devices can provide transparency that's not forcibly intended.
Okay.
But there's a lot of fun examples. The Department for Homeland Security in the US, they have security cameras everywhere, and they are accessible as well, or they were accessible until very shortly. So it's interesting.
Okay. So now we have another question, which is from Magdalena. What's your response to individuals when they ask about their data and secure it when companies like Facebook are using it anyway?
So why? It's a very good point. In my world, I actually differentiate between the data that I share on purpose or half knowingly, like on Facebook, and data that I explicitly don't share, like with a medical wearable device where I clearly don't intend anybody except for my doctor to know my blood pressure. In the Facebook type of example, I think every person needs to understand and define for himself if he wants to share this data or not. We know since Cambridge Analytica that this data can not only be used to know the facts that we have shared directly, but we know that this can be used for profiling that goes very far in terms of personal manipulation for political reasons or any other reasons. So I think people who are a little bit informed and care, at least they know and they will be mindful about what they share. And for me, the problem of all the data that I don't explicitly share is actually a much bigger risk, because even mindful people still have the risk of sharing things that can be very sensitive. And this is something where I think we all have a responsibility, and we need to start speaking up towards companies. We need to foster fast regulation. We need to foster standards, and we need to really take action in each of the organizations we are working in.
Okay, cool. So maybe one more question. This one is for me. So I know that now more and more people have connected devices at their home. So we're not speaking about manufacturing environment or no such thing. So people have like garage door openers, or you've been speaking about. People have this Alexa small things that are helping them in the day-to-day activity, or things that help you manage open the blinds or manage the temperature, all these kind of things. My knowledge of those objects is that they may come with vulnerabilities and stuff like this. So what would be your recommendation to make sure that when installing this kind of object in my home, I'm not putting at risk for instance, my connected file server with all, which is also in my home and in my network. So what would be your recommendation if I want to install such like connected devices in my home to make sure that they're not being a threat for my personal connected to my home?
I mean, in enterprise environment, you may separate the structures, right, of security critical and security non-critical. That's what you even do in vehicles at the moment, right? You have the safety critical if it's connected, if it's related to the braking system, you try to separate it from the connectivity in the infotainment system. I think in normal households, this is not something that we will be able to sustain. A normal internet user is not going to be capable of separating the networks in his home. What I would recommend for the connected devices is to, at least for now, rather go with brands. I would be mindful with some of the international topics. Chinese security cameras are really known for being extremely accessible. Typically, you don't even have to hack them. You just have to find out where you can find the pictures.
Yeah.
I think renowned brands have a higher incentive of protecting their brand than a no-name has.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that it's already done.
Okay. So basically, if I summarize, you would advise me to go to brands that are well known and that will have interest in like protecting their brands and basically maybe taking more care about security. So yeah, be careful about what you buy, basically.
And ask, you can ask wherever you are purchasing this sort of equipment if there is an awareness. And also a few minutes of Google research can typically tell you some of the real fun breaches and will help you guiding if you want to put a camera system into your house to not use Verkada, which has just been hacked.
Okay. Good to know.
So there's a lot of information. You just need to go hunting for it. It's not yet publicly transported. Everybody knows about the oil pipeline in the US, but it's still not everybody is thinking about it all the time. But we should.
Cool. Yeah, so sometimes we have tendency to forget, but Google is our best friend, even in those cases. So I think thank you very, very much, Susanne. We're now arriving at the end of the time.